All right, we're live and ready to rock. I'm pumped. Rich Austin is in the building. He is, just go ahead and break the ice now. He is also my cousin. So this is kind of cool because it is a yin and yang. I am in the world of marketing and digital marketing, and he is in the world of sales and sales coaching. So it's going to be a fun one today. We got a family affair going on. So I'm very, very excited. Rich, what's going on, brother?
Hey, it's good to see you, Austin. Thanks for having me on here. You're taking a big risk, and I appreciate risk takers.
I'm excited, yeah, man. If for anybody watching this right now, just for a time standpoint, Michigan Wolverines, we are both Michigan Wolverines fans, and they're about to play in the college football playoff. So I am sitting here with my Michigan mug ready to rock, and we're pumped. So, but enough about football. We're going to get rolling into
Can we go
today's
back to football for just a second? I want to make sure that people understand that Michigan was 3-13 over the past 16 years against Ohio State, and then won 2 consecutive years, 2021 and 2022. Not that we care that much, not that we talk about it incessantly. I just thought it was worth bringing up one more time. So hopefully we're not too far off track. Austin.
No, absolutely. Anybody that's an Ohio State fan watching this, we're only about a minute and a half in, so you can shut it off if you want to. But if you want to stay on, you're more than welcome. You probably get some good knowledge out of here. But awesome, man. Well, let's kick it off. Today, I think what we're going to really be discussing here is the yin and yang of sales and marketing. And a lot of what Dippidi does for our clients is we help our clients focus on a multi-channel advertising strategy. So we try to help them generate new leads and opportunities that go into their CRM and give them opportunities for more future sales, building prospects, customers, having past clients, just really giving them more opportunity through the digital landscape. But what happens is when you generate leads and you go through lead generation, once the lead is generated, there is work to be done to convert that lead from a lead or a stranger into a prospect that turns into a client that then becomes a referral source for you in the future. So there's this entire scope of work that has to be done once the lead is generated. And, a lot of agents struggle with taking a stranger and meeting a stranger, especially over the phone or however they go about it, and nurturing that relationship into a closing. So I think I want to kick off with that. First off, before anybody goes further, they probably want to know, like, who is Rich Austin and why should I even be listening to this guy?
It's a great question. I'll just tell you the number one reason why you should listen to me. I'm related to Austin St. Jean. And you already are familiar with the pearls of wisdom that he gives you. And so if I can measure up to half that much, then we're going to have some pretty good content here. So that's it. No, so I work for a company called Sandler. We've got a franchise right here in Westchester, Pennsylvania. And so we're a professional development firm. We focus primarily on sales process and how-tos within that sales process. So once Austin and Dippidi have done their work to bring you a prospect who's raising their hand and saying, I want to have a conversation, we kind of take the ball from there through the point where they're either giving us a yes or a no, we want to do business together. So from the qualifying to the getting into pain, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and it's a pain-based sales process, all the way through the budget conversation to how folks make decisions, to how they want to be presented to, and doing this in a way that interrupts the pattern so that we don't look like, sound like, act like, smell like the stereotypical over-eager, over-enthusiastic salesperson with commission breath. And it's interesting. The work that we do is a lot of fun because we're working with like Dippidi, like Austin, like your group. We're working with organizations that know how to sell. They're very good at what they do. They're just looking to take their game to the next level. So we're not coming in and completely ripping apart a sales process. We're basically enhancing it. It's a lot like hiring a quarterback coach for an all-pro quarterback or hiring a tennis coach for a Serena Williams. It's the same concept. We're just taking them to the next level. We're making some changes to interrupt the pattern. And then once we've done that, we see people start to fly. So it's a lot of fun. We work with a lot of different industries.
I love that. What are some of the industries you guys have worked with?
So a lot of tech, a lot of SaaS, a lot of tech, a lot of manufacturing, a lot of financial services. We dabble in the real estate market. So I'm excited for today's conversation because I know that's a market that you guys touch on quite a bit. We've done some work in the past with professional athletes and teams, and the coaching aspect and the between the ear stuff, the psychology, how we can position ourselves differently, how we can make our idea somebody else's idea, so that they'll want to run with it, because people believe their own ideas. They don't believe mine. They don't believe yours. Right. So it's the art and the science of how do I create a conversation to help somebody be vulnerable enough, open enough, and trusting enough to share the truth. Because that's, after all, what we're after. We're after the truth. And that's not easy to find, especially when you're talking to a salesperson who you believe might be out there to make a buck. So we'd like to turn that on its head. It's a lot of fun.
I love that. That's super cool. And the fact that you have so much different experience in these different industries, I think is going to be really cool for anybody watching this right now, whether you're in real estate or a small business owner. We've worked with so many different industries as well, primarily focused in real estate, but you're going to see a perspective here that it intertwines all the way through, I think, regardless of the industry that you're in. So I guess I want to kick off and ask, when we're generating these inbound leads, this is somebody that may be, we'll stick to real estate here, somebody that's searching for a home for sale on Google, and they land on a landing page that then takes them to view those homes. Well, that lead pours into the CRM for the agent to be able to follow up with. They're getting their name, email, phone number, and kind of have an idea of the cities they're looking at based off of the landing page they came in on. So that's kind of the info they have. So, what do I do with these inbound leads, though, that Dippidi is generating for me? What should my next step be?
It's a great question. My guess is everybody here has got a process for what they do right now. And so I would invite people to think about, okay, you've got a process, whether it's documented or not, but even if it's not documented, let's document what that process typically looks like for you. So what is the sequence, cadence? What do the touches look like? Let's start with understanding what our process looks like. If I'm sitting in the seat of a realtor, by the way, Austin, my wife and I and our boys happen to be in the market for a new home. So we're on somebody's lead list, and we've been contacted a number of different times. And so it's been fun. I always love having conversations with salespeople and understanding what's their approach. What are they going to do? How are they going to handle us?
You're actually the last person they want, because they're calling you and you're like testing them. You're over here. That's fun.
No, I'm easy to sell, right? Because I get it. I understand it's hard, but I will pick apart their sales process. That's for sure. And I will see what's more important to them, demonstrating their competence and their expertise in a particular region or neighborhood, or is it more important to them to make a connection with us and understand what we're truly after? And so it's interesting that most people tend to lead off with, hey, I know this neighborhood. I know the school system pretty well. I've been doing this for 15 years. This is a weird market, but I've seen this market before. And some of those things are nice and they're reassuring to hear, but boy, there's not a lot of questions about, say, hey, what brings you into the market? And can you help me understand what you're looking for? Why are you even looking for a home in the first place? Are you renting? Are you buying? Have you been through this process before? At some point we'll get there, but usually it's all about them first. And so to answer your question, kind of a winding way to answer your question, if I'm getting inbound leads, the very first thing I'm going to do, assuming that there's a phone number, is I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to attempt to have a human-to-human conversation with them. Now that might be old school, and you might ask why. And I would say this: we're all about interrupting the pattern. We want to do something different. We want to appear different. We want them to have a different experience. And so today, when everybody's texting and everybody's emailing and everybody's creating these beautiful sequences that are going to go out and they're going to contact our prospects while we're sleeping and generate conversations, and this happens, it does happen frequently, I'm going to actually have a human-to-human conversation because I want to understand who that person is. I want them to hear my voice, and I want to get a sense for where are they? What's their urgency level? Are they tire kicking? Are they serious? Is there something behind it? Their decision to buy or to look into the market? Is there something driving that? What is their curiosity? Why is it being piqued? Why did they come across my desk? It's just so curious. There's so many questions to ask and answer that's the first place that I want to start. And that's the way it was done probably 15 or 20 years ago. And it's moved to a digital age, and rightfully so. But if I could interrupt that pattern, I can give my prospect a different experience.
I love that. Now you're saying something here that I've been a part of the Sandler journey, the foundations, and learned. So I've learned a little bit about it all. But for people that don't know, what do you mean by interrupting the pattern? Like, can you kind of define that for us?
Yeah. Okay. So what is interrupting the pattern? It is doing the unexpected. So for example, in the first, let's say 30 to 45 seconds of a first conversation with a prospect, think about what it is you do when you say to establish an agenda for that conversation, to establish comfort and vulnerability for that conversation, and to establish that the decision is going to be made in that conversation. What does that look like, and what does that sound like for you? For most salespeople, here's what it sounds like. Hey, look, it's great that we're having a conversation. So, let's get into it. And they get right into it. And typically it's leading with, hey, so glad that your name came across my inbox, and happy to have a conversation. You're in the right place. Let's talk about the market. What I'd like to do to interrupt the pattern is say something like, hey, Austin, so glad that you reached out. Chances are my name is unfamiliar to you. Am I catching you off guard? This is the first thing I'm going to do, because they probably don't know who I am, and they probably don't know what the context for the call is. What I might then say is, look, got a notification that you might be in the market for buying a new home. I don't want to make any assumptions. Does that sound somewhat unfamiliar to you? So I'm going to give them some permission to be like, I want to engage in this call, or I don't. And then at that point, if they're like, yeah, that sounds familiar. Well, hey, let's do this. Why don't I take like 45 seconds? I'll tell you who I am and what we're about and the types of people we typically work with in this market. And then you can tell me if you believe we should keep talking. Is any of that unfair?
No, I kind of like what you did there, where you said, is any of that unfair? In the Sandler world, that is called something. Would that be an upfront contract right there, or a mini upfront contract? And if that is that, you just interrupted the pattern, but you also did what you would call a mini upfront contract?
That's it. Yeah. So we interrupted the pattern. We had a miniature upfront contract, which just establishes a purpose. It establishes a bit of an agenda, and it gives them a timeline. So like, look, at the end of 45 seconds, if you don't like what I'm saying, you have the ability to opt out, and you're not going to be on the phone for more than a minute. If you like what I'm saying after 45 seconds, then that grants us another lease on another, let's say 4 to 5 minutes to get into a conversation, at which point you can start to execute your sales process by being very interested in the prospect. But I want to give them an out, because in real life, right, if you're a prospect, if you're looking at buying something and somebody's selling to you, you can disqualify them, they can disqualify you, or we can decide that we're going to do business, or we can at least decide that another conversation is warranted. And so what we see quite a bit of, even with seasoned veteran salespeople, is they're not giving their prospects enough space to be truthful with you. I want to know. I'd rather know now whether this lead is going to go anywhere or whether it's not, as opposed to following up and following up and following up and getting little to no response, or worse yet, having somebody say, hey, this was a good conversation. Can we talk again in a couple of weeks? Which is probably code for, I'm not all the way there yet. Maybe it doesn't make sense to continue, but they're being polite. And it's more polite to tell a salesperson, hey, can we talk again in a couple of weeks, than it is, hey, I'm not really convinced that you're the person I need, so maybe we should stop. And I want to give the prospect the autonomy and the agency to say that. And it's not easy to do, but boy, it frees up some time.
Yes, and it doesn't just free up some time for you, it frees up some time for them, because if you're not getting to that right place with them, then where they're able to answer truthfully and find out the truth, then you're chasing them around for maybe far too long, and now you're actually wasting your time and their time.
Yeah.
Which I love about the process here in the Sandler Foundation is that it's actually about being efficient with both parties. And so I think that's really cool. Now I'm assuming a great way to get to being efficient in that sales process is by having pain-based conversations.
Yeah.
And now you brought that up a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So what is a pain-based conversation?
Okay. So it's a great question. And we get this a lot. And we find that pain is a bit of a buzzword. I think everybody has probably heard of find the pain or, hug the gap. What's the gap between where they are and where they want to go? That's what you got to look for. It's actually quite simple. Pain is an emotionally compelling reason for somebody to buy. That's simply all it is. And so if we look at the real estate world and we look at a family who might be looking at, let's say, upsizing or upgrading or moving to a new community or whatever it might be, that's pretty intellectual. That's an intellectual thing. They want to move somewhere else. And so if we just take that, I'm like, okay, they want to move somewhere else and we run with it, what we're not figuring out is, well, what's the emotionally compelling reason that's behind that? And so for us, it's the why behind the what. And there's this gentleman named Sakichi Toyota. So if anybody's ever owned or driven a Toyota before, that's the guy. He created the Toyota Motor Company. He's known as the Japanese godfather of engineering. And he had this really cool problem-solving process that's now really popular in lean manufacturing and Six Sigma project management. It's called the 5 Whys. And his idea was, show me a problem, allow me to ask why 5 times, and I will present to you the root cause of that problem. So the problem is they want to move somewhere else. Well, what if we got really curious about that? We said, okay, this is really interesting. Could you help me understand why that might be the case? And the rule to this is usually the first 2 whys, the first 2 answers you get are going to be intellectual in nature. The third, fourth, and fifth answer that you're going to receive are emotional in nature. And so what you might figure out is, and they're not going to come right off the bat with this, well, my daughter is an elite athlete in that school district, has a better athletic program for her development. And so we want to move there. And that's not the first thing that they're going to offer up in a conversation with somebody they don't know, who's a realtor. We've got to dig for that and get very, very intellectually curious about their scenario. So pain-based selling is simply, let's understand the emotionally compelling reasons why somebody would change or why somebody would make a decision to buy. And if we can do that, then our prospects almost always get the sense that we understand their world better than anybody else does. And that's when we start to develop true trust and the true relationship, and we get some vulnerability. So I know that was kind of a long-winded answer, and maybe we can pick it apart, but that's how we look at it. It's a lot simpler than folks make it out to be.
I think this is big. So like, I think this could be a huge nugget to take away from this is just naturally, I mean, if somebody could learn about interrupting the pattern and learning about some great pain-based learning how to dig to get to that 5th layer, I think is important. So is there some examples, and they don't necessarily have to be in real estate. If you got them in real estate, fire away by all means. Yeah. But if they're in something that you know for sure that we could maybe even correlate to, like, okay, I could see how this could transition and translate to real estate. Yeah. What are some pain-based questions you could ask to try to dig?
So the simplest one is probably, could you tell me a little bit more about that? So that's going to start to dig below the surface. I think it's a great question, Austin. I'll back up a little bit. So we look at pain as a bit of an iceberg. So when we start to uncover symptoms, what we might call symptoms to a pain, it's surface level. So like an iceberg, 10, 15% is above the water. The majority of the iceberg is below the water. But that first level of pain we call surface level reasons. And that's where most people stop, including myself for like my first 7 years of my sales career. Like, what's the problem? I'm a problem solver. So just tell me what it is and then let's go fix it. And we're predisposed to do that because we've got expertise and we want to demonstrate that expertise. We call that the superhero syndrome. Where we take a service level pain, we think that's the real problem, but the problem the prospect brings us is never the real problem. It's always something deeper, but they're not going to share it with us unless we, number one, get the permission to ask some questions, and number two, get below that surface level. So the next level below would be business impact. So how is that problem impacting the business, or how is that problem impacting the family or the individual that we're having a conversation with? So that's the second level of pain. Third level of pain is going to be personal impact. How is it impacting the individual that you're having a conversation with? So once we get there, we start to dig down a bit deeper. And so I might start with, could you tell me a little bit more about that? I might then say, can you be a little bit more specific? Can you give me an example? I then might say, hey, do me a favor. How long has this been in your psyche? How long have you been thinking about this? And as we start to ask these questions, it's interesting. The prospect starts to self-discover reasons that are emotionally based as to why they might want to make the move. Our belief is we can't convince anybody to do anything. They've got to convince themselves. Mm-hmm. And it's better if they can convince themselves in our presence, and they can think in ways that they haven't thought of before and share with us things that they maybe haven't shared with anybody else before, because now we're building a true relationship there. So relationships, Austin, we started off talking about Michigan football, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that bonds us together. But when push comes to shove, just because you and I are Michigan fans does not mean that you're going to purchase a home from me. Mm-hmm. Who you're going to purchase a home from in all reality is going to be the person that you trust the most and the person that understands your situation the best and has taken the time to do so. So that's what we mean by relationship building. It's more like business bonding rapport, and less, hey, I see an American flag in your background. I'm an American too. Aren't we best friends now?
Yeah. Yeah.
We want to get away from that.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, so it makes me think, all right, so when we're doing these pain-based analysis, if you will, I don't know if there's a better term for that, but we're trying to determine their pain. And all I can think of is like being a doctor for some reason.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to, if you went into a doctor's office, you're not going to walk in there, tell them that I hurt my knee, and they go, okay, here's some drugs for your knee, done. And be like, your knees hurt. Well, tell me where. Tell me what pain are you feeling? What does it feel like? How long has it hurt? And they're going to ask you these questions to determine the pain and what the pain really is, so that way they can then properly diagnose you and properly treat it. So, and in the event, as they're asking these questions, a doctor may determine, oh, this needs surgery. I can't offer this surgery. I have a recommendation for that surgery, for a surgeon, but this is something I can't do. But if he had not dug deeper, or he or she had not dug deeper to find out what that pain was, then in theory, they would be just misdiagnosing and mistreating and setting the wrong expectation, which then the long term will piss off the patient, because they're like, I needed surgery this whole time. Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting, because that's how I correlated in my head as I was listening to you, is that you're almost like a doctor, and you're trying to learn their pain to see if not learn their pain to go closing them, learn their pain to say, can I help them, and can I really help them?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that analogy. You're like a clinician. You are like a physician. Your job is to be clinically detached and ask questions to allow the prospect to reveal that they have true intentions and they've got a true motivation, or they don't. And to your point, if I walk into the doctor and I've got a hurt knee, and a physician takes a look at my knee and says, well, it's going to require surgery, without an MRI, without an X-ray, without asking me when it started hurting, how I heard it, how I've been coping, have I been self-medicating, have I been numbing, what have I been doing? If they're not asking those questions and getting curious, we're probably walking out the door. Probably not going to trust the individual. We're going to get a second, third, fourth opinion. So to your point, selling is the same exact mentality. That's the attitude. That's the mindset. I am a clinician. I am even keel. I'm going to ask questions. I'm also going to empathize with the prospect. Like, it kind of sucks to have a hurt knee. So it wouldn't hurt in that scenario if I'm like, boy, that doesn't seem like it's a lot of fun. Could you do me a favor? Help me understand how this has been impacting you in your everyday life. Mm-hmm. And oh my God, what's going to happen? I'm going to start, well, I can't play basketball anymore. I tried to play roller hockey. I can't put any weight on my knee. I don't have a slap shot. I can't pick my kids up, right? It could be a number of different, but those are emotional byproducts of the pain. It's no longer intellectually my knee hurts. Now we're getting down to the emotion. And that's typically where people are going to find the motivation to make a decision to change. If they're not in pain, they're not going to change. Bottom line. If they're not trying to get away from something, or they're not trying to get towards something, they're not going to change. We see it in everyday life, let alone sales.
So that actually brings me to a question of a lead that comes in that may actually not know they're in pain quite yet, right? Yeah. They're actually researching. They're being proactive in their purchasing decision. What would you do with somebody like that if you were to hop on the phone and they ask you, hey, I'm just looking? What sort of value can you give to where that this may now be like a follow-up opportunity, but how would you go about that? The looky-loos of the world, the window shoppers.
Yeah, and so we're going to have plenty of those, and that's completely okay. I think we all do it on occasion. We've got ideas. We'd like to go out there and see what's in the marketplace. We'd like to have some conversations with some experts. We want to get some data. Perhaps we're spreadsheet, process-oriented, and we want to get our ducks in a row. That's okay. If we take a look at how people are motivated to buy, the strongest motivation to buy is pain in the present. They've got pain right now, and they want it fixed right now. So if we go back to your physician analogy, if you're playing a pickup game of basketball, you fall on your ankle, and all of a sudden your foot is twisted the wrong way, and it hurts. Somebody calls a paramedic, and that paramedic comes into the gym. The first question out of the prospects or our mouth, if we have a hurt ankle, is probably not going to be, hey, paramedic, before you touch my foot, where'd you get your certification done? Yeah. Where did you study medicine? And where did you study triage? Which hospital were you planning on taking me? Like, we don't care, right? We just want the ankle fixed, and we want it fixed now. So not all of our prospects are going to be in that situation. So we've got people that have pain in the future. And that's probably what we're talking about right now. It doesn't hurt right now, right?
Yeah, because you got to think especially in the real estate world, a decision to purchase a home or sell a home, unless you're in a distressed situation, such as a divorce or probate or, all these different things, they're not in that pain right now feeling at all times. Some people are very proactive in real estate. So a lot of times they are doing research. It could take them 6 months before they actually make that decision of, okay, now I'm ready to talk to a real estate agent. Now I'm ready to actually follow through with, listing the home or looking for homes and going and seeing homes, getting pre-qualified. What could you do with those people in the meantime? So if a lead comes in the system and they're 6 months, 12 months, maybe they don't even know out, what would you do in that situation as a salesperson?
So as like a highlight, like starting from the top, that's probably a pain in the future type of an individual, maybe even a pleasure in the future. We only do things for one of two reasons. It's to avoid pain, and it's to feel some pleasure, right? Those are the two motivating reasons why anybody would change anything or buy anything. I want to understand from them what prompted them to reach out in the first place. And they probably have a process in mind or a timeline in mind. So I'm going to prompt that conversation. Like, do me a favor. Some people come to us and they're ready to buy now. Other people come to us and they've got a timeline of, let's say, 4 to 6 months. And other people come to us, they have no intention to buy. They just want to have a conversation. I don't want to make any assumptions. Could you help me understand where you are?
I love that.
They're going to
giving them options instead of just acting like everyone's the same. And just because this lead came in the system, they're ready to buy, they're ready to buy, they're ready to sell. You're giving them options of saying, what bucket do you best fit in? Yeah. Because that dictates how I'm about to handle this conversation.
Yeah. And then they're going to answer that question. And then when they answer that question, again, I want to understand why that's the case. And then maybe I want to dig into their history a little bit. Like, you do me a favor, you probably, if you're anything like a lot of our clients, and again, I'm going to use a third-party story here. I'm not going to assume anything. For anything like a lot of our clients, there's some people in their life that they lean on for real estate, either advice or just ideas. And so do you have anybody like that in your world? I want to understand, like, who else is involved in this decision process? Who else is involved in their conversations? Sometimes it makes sense to get those people involved and the next conversation that we might have. And Austin, to your point, if it's a pain in the pleasure a pain in the future or a pleasure in the future type of a scenario, this could be a great lead. It's just the lead is going to take 8 months to mature. And so what is our cadence going to look like over that 8 months to build trust and to build the context for us to be able to do business together? Are we going to agree that we're going to have a call every month and we're going to invest 15 minutes to see what's changed, what we would like to do? Is the market leaning in a different direction that might impact their decision one way or another? And that's okay, right? Whether it leans them towards making a purchase or it leans them away from making a purchase. It's about getting curious, and it's about understanding, is their pain growing or is their pain receding? And I don't want to get in the way of that. I just want to understand it.
Okay, I like it. So let's segue into maybe trying to determine like why somebody would work with you versus all these other agents. I'm not sure. I'm going to say this stat wrong. Please, anybody watching, don't kill me. But it's something like there's 3 million licensed real estate agents in the world, in America, in the US, and there's 3 million transactions. So there's literally one transaction for one agent. But that's not how it works. There's a majority of agents that actually get a bulk of the work. They get quite a bit of business volume going on. So with there being 3 million agents and 3 million transactions, why would somebody work with me as opposed to someone else?
I mean, I want to lean into that question quite a bit. I'm not sure who's going to watch this podcast, and I don't know what their experience looks like. I don't know what their tenure looks like. I don't want to make assumptions about their proficiency, but like bottom line, why would somebody want to work with you? And so what I would lean into is hey, let's do this. Why don't I share with you the top 2 or 3 reasons why people tend to do business with me, and then you can share with me if it makes sense for us to keep going. And those 2 to 3 reasons are going to be pains that I help people solve, and very specific pains. And so it might be, here's who I typically work with. I work with young families who are looking to upsize or upgrade their home because they need more space. And they're finding that while they where they're living suits them okay today, it's not going to suit them okay in the next year or two. Other times I'm working with folks who are retiring and they're empty nesters. And while they have a beautiful home that they love, they're finding that it's a little bit too much for them to handle, or more than they want to handle. And so they're looking for something that's still going to be, let's say, nice living. That's the wrong term, right? It's going to be a beautiful home, but something that's a little bit more manageable for them. So they can still entertain and they can still have guests, but it's just going to be easier for them to be able to do the things that they want to do and to do the things they love. Other times I'm working with folks who they're like, hey, this is my first time buying a house and I want to get into the real estate game. And I understand that I'm probably throwing away my money when it comes to renting. And so I want to figure out how to crack that code. So I'm going to stop there. Those are the types of people I tend to work with. That's what they're trying to achieve. Is any of that worth further conversation?
I like it. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because you do have to find ways to differentiate yourself. Now, the beautiful thing is you have marketing too. So you can be doing things on the forefront as a person in sales and going out there and serving and selling, but the marketing's there to back you up as well with your message. I guess it kind of like my mind starts going into not just like getting new leads and customers, but what are some ways that you can have like purposeful conversations with current clients or past clients, because those end up becoming your referral source in the future, or repeat business. So do you have any insight in terms of that? Like what are some ways that you can have purposeful conversations with your current clients?
Man, again, it's a great question. And so we've got a process for this. It's called Recon. And so we can execute that. And I'll come back to that. It's a process to have conversations with our best clients, either current clients or past clients, to stay meaningful in their world and to remain relevant to them for their reasons, not for our reasons. The other thing is, where do our best clients come from, Austin?
Marketing.
Love it.
Usually it's relationships. It's building relationships is where I feel our best clients come from is building trust and building rapport and serving the client. It usually brings us the best ones.
Love it. So I put you on the spot there.
yeah, I loved it. It was
but
great.
You're right. I mean, our best clients come from our best clients. That's where they come from. And then the folks that we're not talking to, that's where marketing helps us. It helps us expand our reach. So in terms of having conversations with our best clients, one of the best practices that we can do when we decide to work together and we're walking them through that process. And again, I'm going to take real estate as an example. You're a realtor. You've just made somebody very happy by finding them a home. I would establish an upfront contract with them or an agreement with them as part of that closing process. That might sound like this. Hey, Austin, look, I got to tell you, working with you is a breath of fresh air. Here's why. Because you cared about this process. You were easy to communicate with and always available whenever we needed to have a conversation. And you weren't afraid of change. You had some non-negotiables at the front, and those kind of changed towards the end. But look where we are now. We're in an awesome position. If I could be selfish, I'd only want to work with people that are cut out of your mold. They're easy to communicate with. They're open to change, and they're willing to take a risk and make a decision. So, look, I don't want to make any assumptions. I don't know you that well, and I don't know who's in your inner circle. What I would love is to build a business with people that are completely cut out of your mold. So would it be inappropriate of me in, let's say, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days to reach back out to you and to ask you who else you might know that would value a conversation with us the way that you valued it? So I'm going to ask I'm going to ask for permission to ask for referrals, but I'm going to do it in a way that's not like, who do you know? It's like, these are the reasons why I liked working with you specifically. These are the types of people, if I could wave a magic wand, that I would only be working with. So I'm going to ask that. I'm also going to say something like, by the way, you might need a plumber. God, I hope you don't, but you might need a plumber in the next 60 days. Or you know, maybe you're doing your taxes and you want a new accountant. Look, if there are other people out there that I can introduce you to that would be helpful for you and your family, please let me know, and I'd be happy to do so. With nothing to do with real estate, but only to do with what you're looking to accomplish. Austin, maybe they're in sales. Maybe you just sold a house to a salesperson. Maybe they've got an ideal client profile that exists out there. Like maybe they sell to chief information security officers. Maybe you know a chief information security officer, a CISO, and you could broker or facilitate an introduction there. There's so many different ways that we can offer value to folks through the sales process and at the conclusion of the sales process, but we have to ask.
Yep.
So that's how I do it.
Would you say that there's a saying that you guys have said in your sales coaching about spilling the candy in the lobby? And I don't know why I love that saying so much. Maybe it's because I love candy. I'm not quite sure. But spilling the candy in the lobby is essentially like saying everything up front. So you get so excited that you got someone on the phone and you're starting to you're talking more than they're talking. Yeah. And so would you say that it's more important to ask questions and allow them to talk than it is actually to stroke that conversation with, you know, how you benefit? Is it better to just continue with questions and then slightly stroke to acknowledge that you're listening and then continue with asking questions? Or how would you go about that?
Yeah, I'll go back to what you did earlier with the physician analogy, where your physician is going to ask a number of questions, at which point they're going to tell you they can help you or they can't. So what if our conversations with a prospect were set up the same way? Hey, look, let's do this. Do me a favor. In our conversation today, there's a bullet point format. There's probably 2 or 3 things that you want to make sure you understand from us. Would you mind sharing with me what those things are? And then they're going to tell us, right? Well, I want to know what your process is for helping me find a home in a competitive market. And I want to understand, how you typically relate to lenders and what that looks like. And do you have relationships there? Okay. Is there anything else? And perhaps they say no. Okay, cool. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to understand your world as well as you understand it. In order for me to best help you, I got to know things like what's driving your interest in us and in the market, what you're looking to avoid, what you want to gain. So I'm going to ask a lot of questions. And do me a favor. If I'm asking too many, would you kindly tell me?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give them a permission to do that. And then the last thing I'll say is this. If at some point I get the sense that I'm not the best realtor for you in your situation, would you be okay if I just told you that?
That takes, and see, there's so many people that can't even bring themselves to do that because they want the deal. They're hunting, right? They're constant as somebody in sales, and you live off commission, you're constantly hunting. And so to be able to have that opportunity in front of you, and you have the self-actualization to realize that this is not somebody that is actually fit for me to work with, where I'm going to give them a pleasant experience. You have to have that humility to be able to back out of that and be upfront with them. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, if you couldn't work with them, they may still refer you to somebody that, because you gave them a better scenario of how you can help, and they could find that profile for you, that they then still send you business because you were so upfront and honest, versus going into that situation and failing and giving them a bad experience. And now you just diminished a referral.
Yeah, I agree. So let's tell them, like, if I get the sense I can't help you, I'll tell you that. And I'll do my best to help you find somebody that can help you.
Yep.
On the other end, if you get the sense that our approach or something about me doesn't sit well with you at any point in time, tell me. Would you be comfortable telling me that? Because we can stop.
I love it.
On the other hand,
amazing stuff. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I think the thing I would want to leave here today with, and I don't know if you have anything off top, so hopefully I'm not putting you on the spot, but is there any tools you would recommend? Somebody just watched this, and the first thing I immediately think of if you watch this, and I wish I would have said it earlier, I just didn't know how the convo was going to go, is watch this back and listen to all the questions that Rich discussed. He fired off probably 50 to 100 questions in the middle of this conversation that you could write down and manipulate and use in your conversations on the phone. He did so many different examples of questions to qualify, questions to dig on pain. I would rewatch this just and skim through to make sure you get those questions. But is there any tools that you would recommend somebody tries to do, whether it's a strategy or a tactic? What's something that somebody could take away from this today to try to implement?
Okay. So first of all, somebody's going to fact check this conversation. They're going to be like, Rich only asked 27 questions. So let's just get that out of the way. Right. In terms of a tool, and I've got one sitting here on my other monitor that I use on a daily basis. It's called a cookbook. I'll try to be as brief as possible with this. The idea is, let's reverse engineer success. What does that
Rich,
look like?
Are you able to show this cookbook? Is this something you can actually show?
I think I can.
Yeah, if you can typically, there's a button here to present, and you can add it to the screen.
Cool.
And then I'll add it to the stream here, and we'll see if we can actually dive into the cookbook.
Okay.
There it is. Now, is everything good on the screen? I can bring this in? No, nothing you need to hide?
No.
All right, cool. Just making sure. Perfect.
Can you see it?
I can see it.
Okay. Now, this thing is a monster, and it looks kind of weird, but bear with me here. And I can't see you anymore, Austin, so you're just going to have to verbally be like, Rich, shut up. Let me ask you a question.
No worries.
What it does is it takes our own ambitions, our own goals. Let's say, I want to sell 70 houses this year. Or I wish to make $100,000 this year. Let's start with the end in mind. And then we're going to back in the behaviors and the ratios that can help us understand what we need to do daily, weekly, and monthly in order to make this plan a reality. So that's kind of the fun part. So if you look at this, and let me see if I can get like a little wand here going. There we go. So if we look at this, we're going to start in box one. We're making the assumption that this individual essentially wants $750,000 of new revenue for the coming year, let's say. And let's say they're going to work 42 weeks over the course of that coming year because they're going to take some vacations, or maybe this isn't their full-time job, whatever, when it comes to real estate. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to understand what that looks like. And then I'm going to move into, for me, in terms of opportunities to sell, what do elephants, deer, fox, and mice look like in my world? In other words, how big is the opportunity? So if I'm selling homes, maybe an elephant in my world is a $750,000 home. Like that's probably the top end of my range. Maybe I can go higher, but typically that's what I'm going to focus on. Deer, maybe that's a $500,000 home, and then on down the line. What I want to understand next is, once I've identified the revenue per opportunity, how many of those do I think I'll need over the course of the year, and in what quantity, in order for me to surpass that $750,000 revenue goal? And so in this case, it's going to be 19 pieces of business closed, or let's say 19 houses that are going to equate to $775,000. That's one piece. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we need to understand, what is our close ratio? So for each opportunity we have that we qualify and we take through to the end, what is my close percentage? So this is all customizable, but essentially if we assume just a 20% close ratio down the line, what this indicates to us is we're going to need 5 opportunities at the elephant level in order to bring home 1. We're going to need 15 opportunities at the deer level in order to bring home 3, and so on down the line. So in essence, we need 95 opportunities over the course of the year. Next thing we need to understand, another ratio here, what percentage of time do my first discovery meetings lead to an opportunity? Because that's going to tell us how many total discovery or first conversation meetings do I need to get over the course of a year. So in this case, it's going to be about 119, which means I'm going to need 2.8 discovery meetings or 3 discovery meetings per week in order for me to hit my number over the course of a year. So the big goal for what I want to make or how many houses I want to sell seems like a lot when we start a year. Here's what doesn't seem like a lot. I need 3 discovery meetings a week.
Mm-hmm. So, and to correlate that to real estate, that may be appointments. That could be appointments with a buyer. It could be appointments with a past client. It could be appointments with a referral. It could be a buyer appointment or a seller appointment. I mean, you need 3 in this scenario that we've painted here.
And then the last thing we'll do is we're going to figure out what are the leading indicators that I'm going to commit to that are going to help me get 3 discovery meetings a week. So proactively from a prospecting standpoint, what am I going to do? Well, one thing I don't have listed in here is inbound opportunities, Austin. So if I were working with you, I'd probably add that in, and I'd probably give myself a number. But I've got suspect calls, I've got client reach outs, I've got referral requests, and I've got LinkedIn activity. And if I do them at this frequency on a weekly basis, and I know what my conversion rates look like, which are kind of meager, but if I do it consistently, it informs me I'll get 3.5 discovery meetings or appointments per week, which is more than what I need over the course of a week to be successful. So what we're doing here is we're zooming out and we're saying on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, how can I lay my head down at night, rested on a pillow, knowing that I've done what I needed to do from a behavioral standpoint, from a prospecting standpoint, from an ownership standpoint, to point me in the direction of success, independent of how many houses I've sold, because it doesn't matter. The results don't matter. What matters is, am I tracking my behavior, and have I built myself a yellow brick road or a cookbook for success?
Yeah, I love this because this is really cool because this is all action based, and it gives you your goal, but then takes it all the way down to an action. And so many people are like, well, I've sold, I sold 100 homes last year. Well, it's like, well, you're about to roll into 2023 here. It's going to be a little different. So you're going to definitely want to be able to have actions and plans in place to make that happen. But if you have sold 200 homes, then that probably means your request for a referral request conversion rate may go up.
Yep.
Your just the conversations you're having, like all your conversions rate may go up, which then makes it actually easier from a workload. But this gives you a great foundation and starting point to even see where you're at. Call this a checkup if we're going to stick it to the medical world. This is doing a checkup to see where your cholesterol and all that is even at to properly execute. I love that. That was an amazing tool to take away right there.
I'm happy to share it too. If anybody wants it, I'm happy to share you an Excel spreadsheet that you can customize. The ratios are all customizable. And what this is not, Austin, it's not a CRM.
Right.
This is a tool for the individual to understand what am I going to have to input in order to achieve the outputs that I want at the end of the year. And it's a tracking mechanism. So most of our clients, even at the enterprise level, multi-billion-dollar companies are using this tool on an individual basis so that they can track, am I doing the behaviors necessary to get me where I want to be? And the cool thing about it is, like you just said, if I find that I'm actually having way more success in my referral requests, then it's going to take me less of those to get me the opportunities I want that then turn into a discovery meeting. And so this thing can morph and it can change over the course of a year. And it can go the other way too. If I'm not getting the referral request I want, then we can ask, okay, well, do I need to do more? Do I need to do it better? Or do I need to do it differently?
Yep.
And so it can inform those conversations too.
How often should somebody be, once they build this for themselves, and like it's almost perfect timing because January is rolling around, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody were to do this in January and they were to see exactly how many discovery meetings or appointments in the real estate world they need to have per week, whether that's going to coffee or a Zoom or a phone call, what would they need to do once they have that data and they've kind of mapped this out? How often should they be looking back at this to reassess and reevaluate?
Yeah, daily and weekly.
Yeah.
You can start notching the behaviors off. And again, it doesn't matter what the results are because your historical ratios are going to tell you if you do it 42 consecutive weeks at a ratio of 10 per week, it's going to output X. So that way you don't have to worry about the results anymore. So I'd look at it daily and weekly. Last thing I would say, Austin, I know you're a golfer, so I want to make a little analogy here. You go to the driving range, right?
I try to.
Okay. What's that? Tell us, folks. All right. So you go to the driving range and you take out your driver and you hit 100, you slice 100 balls into the woods. Okay. Let's pretend that's the case. You're much better.
That's typically the case. No, that's pretty accurate. Right.
I've seen you golf. You're not that bad. I'm not bad. So you hit 100 into the woods. A lot of people would say, well, just hit more balls. Well, I'm not convinced that hitting 100 more balls into the woods is going to make you more proficient. What you're probably going to have to look at is better and different as opposed to more. And so that's what the cookbook will do for you. It might not be that you need to ask for more. It might be that we need to improve our ask by doing it better or doing it differently. And so on the golf course analogy is, hey, maybe if I'm a right-handed golfer, maybe if I hit left-handed, I'll hit half of them into the fairway, right? That's different, but it's also better. And that's a ridiculous exercise, but it's the same process here. It informs us. It helps us to be able to pivot.
I love that. I think that the thing that I took away most from this entire thing is that I should just start. I'm left-handed. I just need to start swinging right-handed and it'll fix everything. Maybe everybody was right when they tell me that I'm swinging from the wrong side of the ball this whole time. Huh?
Yeah.
Who would have known?
Listen, don't listen to the people that drink the haterade. You just stay lefty. Stay lefty.
I love it, man. Well, dude, thank you so much. This has been awesome. I think it's going to be super insightful and super impactful for anybody watching. If you've made it this far to the end, like I said, I'd rewind back, listen to some of those qualifying questions that Richie was firing off, and definitely take a look at that cookbook. That was really interesting to be able to have some benchmarks for yourself to take action and calculated action, not just shooting in the dark. So I mean, that was amazing. Thank you so much for this, Rich.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Austin. Y'all at Dippidi do phenomenal work. You really do make a meaningful difference and a purposeful difference in your clients' lives by providing them the opportunity to help more folks. And I love that. I admire that. And y'all do it very well. So it's an honor to be here. It's a privilege to be here. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say I love you.
Oh, I love you too, man. I love you too. And you know what, man? For anybody watching, we did not pay him to say that little statement right there at the end. That was kind of that was nice. Appreciate those kind words.
You got it, man. Appreciate it.
All right, Rich. I'll see you, man.
All right, go get him, folks.